greed is seen as one of the 7 deadly sins. It is defined as the desire for material wealth or gain, ignoring the realm of the spiritual. Although greed doesn't cause physical addiction, it does cause psychological obsession that leads to an insatiable desire for more. The greedy person reaches a point where they are willing to cheat, steal, defraud, and exploit the vulnerable and desperate in their goal to get more unnecessary material gain. It is said that you are destined to suffer greatly in hell by burning alive in oil if you participate in this sin. Well, guess it's going to be a deep fry for most of the major gaming companies then, isn't it? Buying games used to be so simple. You'd go to your local game, or GameStop if you're American, find the game, pay actual real money for it, and you'd get the full game there and there. The full game. Now though, you get the equivalent of someone's half-eaten pizza, where they have carefully peeled off all the toppings because they didn't want the pizza anymore, but they just didn't want you to enjoy it. I mean, you're cashing out £70, sometimes even more for the more recent AAA games, and yet Rayman Legends for the PS2 has more to do than Cyberpunk 2077 on release. It just doesn't make any sense, at least to me. We have evolved so much since then. We have cars that can drive themselves, almost. Phones that flip. No, not like that. Not quite that either. Yeah, that one. PCs which can hold more than 5 gigabytes per hard drive, and yet I feel like I'm being ripped off every time I look at the PlayStation Store. I mean, are you for real? £75 for the deluxe edition of Life is Strange Double Exposure, and you get, what, a few different outfit recolors? My money is better spent on Valorant guns. At least those have different sound effects.
Nice, we'll play it.
Money used to be worth something when buying games. Now though, you may as well say your kid need to get the latest Final Fantasy game because you won't be getting it any other way. Wow! That's almost my car tax. Many people will try to make the argument that the price of games has gone up because the price it takes to make the game has gone up. Okay, fair point. GTA 5 did take an estimate of £170 million. 170 million! Granted, that's an estimate which includes everything to do with marketing alongside the game development as well, so there is no denying that that's a lot of money. Maybe the game has to be so expensive and drawn out with microtransactions to make up for the overhead costs. Maybe we should cut Rockstar some slack. It must be so hard running a company nowadays. No, GTA 5 has made a revenue of $8.5 billion, which is equal to £6,701,094,000. You know, just a rough estimate off the top of my head. I can't even be bothered to type out how much profit that is. GTA 5 isn't the only example of this. Red Dead Redemption 2 cost somewhere between $370 million and $540 million, with revenue of $1.38 billion as of the time of this recording. Fortnite cost between $100 to $200 million to make. Oh, how will they survive? Oh wait, they make an estimate of $6 billion a year. Every year. And my mum said there was no future for gaming. Now I know Fortnite is different to the games above, it's free to play for a start, but that's a different topic and I promise we will come back to that later. But the profit stands the same. That is insane money. More money than what you know what to do with if you won the lottery. The games listed above are, in all fairness to them, great games. I've truly picked the best of the bunch there. Great reviews, great gameplay, pretty good fan base most of the time, but I guess Rockstar is just special and Fortnite was one of a kind. At the time anyway. What about the not so amazing games? Let's look at Cyberpunk 2077 or 2077, whichever way you want to say it. This game is, well, it has a reputation, don't you think? From a spectacular Day 1 release with absolutely no issues whatsoever, and Sony definitely not removing it from the store, and 100% still does not have warnings that it's best experience on the PS5. Definitely not. It's had its ups and downs. With massive hype around the game and a grand total of over $436 million spent on its production, and it made a profit from day one with the amount of pre-orders it got. It is absolutely no surprise to anyone who's kept up with the gaming industry whatsoever before its release that there was a lot of hype surrounding it. Promises were made left, right and centre for what type of game this was going to be. In fact, there's a whole list dedicated on Reddit for what they promised, and links to where it was promised. For the sake of simplicity as well, I'll be comparing this to day one release since the topics of updates will be talked about later on. Number 1. Amazing AI with NPCs that have unique daily routines that don't involve vanishing into thin air when you fire a gun. Number 2. Immersive police and wanted system alongside corrupt police that 100% won't just spawn directly next to you. We promise. Number 3. Expansive life paths that have a major effect on the game and doesn't just change a handful of dialogue lines. No, that would just be silly. Number 4. Quest decisions that will have a relevance in the world. And finally, my personal favourite, everyone. Number 5. The game will release when it's ready and will run smoothly on older generation platforms. There's no even defending that one. It was more unplayable than FNAF Security Breach.
Look at this army!
Granted, some of them are expanded upon now, but for all of those who touched it day one and then never again, they didn't get to experience it them at all. Despite practically everything CD Projekt Red promised falling completely flat, did they see a consequence in their finances? Well, later down the line and with a lawsuit, yes, but day one, no, not really. Making a profit on something that cost over $436 million by day one is terrifying. When something is so big that it can't really fail, it makes my skin crawl. I'm glad they've seen consequences since, and they've obviously patched the game since, but what if patching the game wasn't even an option? The internet is a fabulous thing which allows almost anyone in the world to have access to unlimited knowledge, more knowledge than what the human brain can hold. We've got more information in our pockets than NASA did when they launched the first spaceship. And you use it to watch TikTok. Hell, maybe even this video. If that's the case though, please stick around. I do appreciate you. Life has changed so much since the 1st of January 1983, the official birthday of the internet, and humans have used it in every advantage possible. But we're not here to learn about that. We're here to learn about the greed of Ubisoft and a long list of other companies which don't really use the internet the way we wished. When gaming first properly started using the internet for multiplayer games, things like Call of Duty, Halo and any other first-person shooter was seen as king. But what most people don't know is that the first time multiplayer was used was actually in the late 1990s with the launch of Ultima Online and EverQuest, 2 MMORPGs. That's right everyone, multiplayer didn't begin with cool, action-packed Call of Duty, it started with this thing. My god, graphics got better. Anyway, multiplayer and the use of the internet only grew from there. Almost every single game had a way to play with your friends from anywhere across the world. Well, as long as your PS2 could keep up with it. Things were going great. Until it started getting to the PS3 and Xbox 360 era.
Damn it! You know what this is? You know what this is? You! I swear to you!
This is what I like to call the downfall of internet gaming, but also a very steep up climb. It's a confusing time. Basically, this was the era where internet patches and game updates really started to become the norm. This was a generation where there were widespread online adoption as developers realised that they could make small amendments to their game after it had been released. There were a form of online patches before this time, but they weren't necessarily built into the game. On PC, games were patched by downloadable game patch installers or hotfix game files. People way back in the ancient times had to check developer websites and actually be up to date with the games that they were interested in themselves. There wasn't a prompt saying, to continue playing this game, update your game. You need to update the game. Online features unavailable. Update your game. Please update. Please update. Continue playing. Please update, you stupid idiot. I know, manual effort sounds awful. Console games before this were genuinely considered completed at shipment. If a game ever came into any issues post-launch, companies would either issue a recall and ship an updated version or even pull it from sale altogether. Can you even imagine something like that happening in modern times? Because I genuinely actually can't. The closest thing is Sony refunding Cyberpunk orders, but even that wasn't this extreme. The PS3 and Xbox 360 changed all of this. Whether that's for the better or not is still up for debate though. I like to think that during this time where PS3 and Xbox 360 still ruled supreme, game developers were releasing full games and used a brand new content update to simply make the game better than it was. Back then, GTA 5 wasn't riddled with microtransactions. It was used to patch problems and expand the multiplayer to give people more things to do. It was to make something that was already great even greater. I could sit here for hours and gush about all the games I adore on the PS3. There are so many classics I honestly miss. Plants vs Zombies Garden Warfare, Batman Arkham City, The Last of Us, Black Ops 2 even, back when I liked the Call of Duty games, but I don't want to spend too long away from my main point. I honestly can't think of a single game that released back then where the developers relied on updates to make the game what it was supposed to be from day one. Flash forward to 2025 and the only finished games are indie games. There's a few that shine out from the crowd for being especially horrendous though. I know I keep coming back to this, but Cyberpunk 2077 is just too good an example for what modern gaming is.
Had to be them.
Just a gang like any other, right?
I mean, look at this.
Made it. Almost at your place.
What about you? Not likely to make it back to Haywood now.
Kill V? They'll let me through.
If
Sure
there
about
wasn't
that?
patches, there's
yeah.
no chance in hell
I'll play
even the
nice.
higher-ups would have allowed this to go out. Another one that still annoys me to this day is The Sims 4. When looking back at The Sims 3, there are still features missing to this day that The Sims 3 had, which The Sims 4 doesn't. Burglars, drivable cars, open world functionality, but even more bare-bone features were missing from day one. It launched without pools. And the biggest sin of them all, without toddlers. A whole life stage that has been iconic in The Sims since The Sims 2, which was released before I was alive. And it still took EA 2 whole years to add toddlers to The Sims 4 after the game was released. That's nowhere near all of them. No Man's Sky, another prime example of a comeback after a terrible launch. Sea of Thieves, Star Wars Battlefront 2, Days Gone, the list is honestly endless. Developers have gotten way too comfortable relying on game patches, and we, the consumer, have gotten way too comfortable accepting them. Some games do it alright still. Take Dead by Daylight for example. Not saying they haven't had issues in the past, but now it's used in a way to provide a consistent trail of new content. In a way. As long as you want to spend more money on it, but it's the thought that counts. By the average consumer being perfectly content with accepting game updates, the average developer doesn't see major backlash when features get added at a later date. If anything, it may actually draw the old player back in because they've heard from a friend of a friend of a friend that No Man's Sky finally actually feels like a No Man's Sky. I mean, is there a downside to this tactic minus the initial launch anymore for these companies? If you talk about Cyberpunk anymore, then I just tend to hear positives. I've got a family member who swears that it's the best game ever made, and they have given hundreds towards merchandise for this game and upgraded their computer significantly just for Cyberpunk. No Man's Sky is the same situation. People describe it as a comeback story now. The only people who suffer with companies using this method is the consumer. We essentially pre-order the game even after it's been released. Can you imagine buying a movie, then you get to the 40-minute mark and a giant red box appears which informs you the rest of the movie is still being worked on, and you should come back in 2 years to find out what's next? Gaming is the only industry type that can get away with this. Why? It's the only piece of entertainment where you can kind of just glue the pieces together in an order which doesn't really matter, and there can still be some kind of enjoyment found in it somewhere. You can just slip a piece into it later and people will praise you for holding up your side of the bargain years down the line. I know I've talked about this for a while, but I just honestly get so frustrated even thinking about it. I don't even think that's the worst thing about gaming nowadays though. You got the new skin! I love how you stopped running just to jump with it. Did you know that microtransactions started with a horse? That's right, this little right here, you can blame this guy for all of your problems. From playing to paying, a quiet Monday in April 2006 changed it all. Bethesda Studios started selling this horse armor in Elder Scrolls for a whopping $2.50. And now, if you want every single DLC in Chain Simulator, you've got to cash out $10,373. It's all worth it if you want the most immaculate train possible. And if you want absolutely everything in Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, it is quite literally incalculable. You cannot work it out. You think that The Sims 4 being £1,095.23 for all of their amazing expansion packs would have been a warning, but apparently not. That's quite a difference from The Sims 3, which is a total estimate of £346.31. I mean, when was spending £90 on Valorant kitty bundles perfectly acceptable and totally the norm? And so many people do this. I remember the day this specific Avori Dreamwing bundle came out, and it was super cute. I mean, look at it. It was all over social media, and it was all my Valorant duo could talk about. To be fair, it does jump when you jump. That is pretty engaging. But then, when you compare the price, you have to shell out £90 for this bundle. And I instantly knew I just couldn't convince myself to do that. That's almost a month's worth of petrol for me. Who on earth would do that for a skin of a gun where the gameplay doesn't even change? Loading into the next game, and that teammate has it. The enemy Sage has it, and that Phoenix has it too. This is the first day of it being out, the very first, and I haven't played a game without it in, and with it being fully upgraded with the animations and everything too. I'm not judging people who put money into cosmetics in games. I've done it myself. I've got a handful of Valorant skins, and I somehow once convinced myself that the Overwatch Battle Pass was the best way to spend £8 something. I've got a mate, let's call him Peter. Now, Peter is quite young, lives with a roommate somewhere in the UK, and works part-time. He's got another gig on the side which brings him money, but the amount of money he spent on Valorant was beyond what I could guess. He estimated to have spent around £3,000 on Valorant cosmetics on his main account. Main. Now, Peter's clearly making that dollar bill, and I'm obviously extremely jealous, but that amount of money is crazy for things that don't affect the gameplay. Peter is not the only person in the world who does this, and I know that for a fact. There's a Reddit forum asking people how much they've spent on microtransactions in video games, and it's uncomfortable just how many people state they've spent 3 digits or even 4 digits on things like Genshin Impacts. You know, that gacha game where it's gambling, but for weebs. The worst part about all of this is that I can't even blame them for doing it. EA reported a staggering $4.3 billion generated from their microtransactions alone. Some companies do microtransactions okay. They put actual effort into their skins and cosmetics, where having 1 or 2 per character or gun actually can be seen as justified for something that you love. As much as it pains me to say this, Fortnite is actually a really great example of genuine effort being put into their bundles. They don't just drag and drop a different colour over an already existing skin like a certain company we all know and hate that just so happens to be called something similar to Heavy Snow. When trying to find online some examples of companies doing microtransactions correct, I came across a Reddit forum where the vast majority of the comments simply say there's never been one and that they're a curse for modern gaming. I mean, yeah, fair enough. That is the whole point of this video after all. Many people across the world suffer with FOMO. What is FOMO? It stands for the fear of missing out. The fear that you're away doing something else, but someone, somewhere, might be doing something better. It can be associated with feelings of anxiety, and depending on the person, they can be extreme feelings or minor. Now, what if you can profit from people's anxiety? Take advantage of those who are in need to make more gains for yourself. Well, this is an excellent idea, which has now been adapted into practically every single online game in existence now. Battlepasses. Yay! Battlepasses were first introduced in Valve's Dota 2 and Team Fortress 2, but were popularised by Fortnite, which I like to think is the first free-to-play game that doomed us all. Since then, Battlepasses turn up practically everywhere and have demanded more and more and more from the players as the years go on. It's important to know that they are everywhere because they work. They foster engagement and retention thanks to the progress players make throughout their gameplay. They also, in comparison to the other long list of microtransactions that the game will inevitably offer, give great value. I mean, one Valorant skin is £20 give or take, depending on if you want a good one or this shit. And the Battle Passes, you can get many for a cheaper price. Oh my god, and a knife? Whoa! Simply doing any type of basic math tells you that you should be pushing your money towards your Battle Passes over the other poopy thing that you can buy for a more expensive price. They unfortunately generate a huge amount of revenue because of this fact though. since companies offer more for your money instead of the usual microtransactions. I'm saying microtransactions far too much in this video. Instead of the usual microtransactions relying on a small number of payers to make a lot of revenue, the Battle Pass systems rely on a large amount of players making small donations one measly season at a time. Although, in theory, you do get more bang for your buck, but is this really the case? Yes, if you can complete the Battle Pass, you do get way more. The quality of the more is up for debate, but it is still more quantity-wise. Although, this is if you can complete it. Surely, if you're still watching this video, you're fully aware how Battle Passes work, so I won't even bother explaining. It'll probably just come across as insulting anyway. So as I'm sure my super smart viewer is aware, Battle Passes make their money with time. It's sort of a way for the game to trap you to make sure you don't go anywhere else, because otherwise, you've spent your money on literally nothing. Sort of like car insurance. Maybe we should just all go around crashing on purpose. I've selected a handful of my favourite Battle Passes and how long, as an estimate, they take the average person to complete. Valorant, 100 hours. Overwatch 2, 55 hours. And that was when they were still really generous with their XP. Dead by Daylight, 66.6 hours. Apex Legends, 100 hours. The finals, over 100 hours. Please keep in mind as well that all of these times are under the presumption that each and every game goes according to plan. That there's no wait times, that no one leaves any of your matches, that you actually manage to complete some of the side challenges that grant you additional XP. Now, other games listed before are games that I've had an interest in at one point or another, and all of them I've bought the Battle Pass for at one point or another as well. Now, let's do some fun maths, shall we? We'll take the Fortnite Battle Pass length as a start point, so 10 weeks, sounds about average. Now, the total playing time for all the games above is 421.6 hours. So, 421.6 hours divided by 10 weeks divided by 7 days in a week equals 6.02 hours a day to complete them all. Ladies and gentlemen, you've got yourself close to a full-time job there. For a hobby. Imagine trying to pick up drawing for a hobby, but every day that goes past, you unlock a new thing you can draw. A tree, a cat, a house. But you've got to miss a few days here and then. Then it's exam season in school, work deadlines are coming up, your cat is sick, anything else. And now the drawing battle pass has ended. And at the end of this battle pass, you were going to be able to draw a lovely pair of tits. You will now never, and I mean never, be able to draw that lovely pair of tits. Ever. You've missed your chance. The tits are gone. This is how it all links to FOMO. Game developers thrive on the worry of people missing out. Everything is timed, and if you play just 5 different games, which isn't that many, you need to invest 6 hours a day to make sure you don't miss out. Since when was gaming supposed to be anxiety inducing? They want to trap you into their game and make it so that you physically cannot invest the time into any other game which may take your fancy. Even though I've never played a Halo game in my life since I've never owned an Xbox, even I know that Halo Infinite Battle Pass is something that should be available for every game. You buy it, you get to work towards it at any point at any time, and if you have multiple Battle Passes that aren't complete, you can pick which one to work towards. The company already has my money, surely I should get everything that I've paid for. Apparently not. It's kind of almost as if fun is an afterthought nowadays. Obviously fun is a subjective term, and no one's idea of fun, especially when talking about video games, is the same as the next person. One of my favourite games to play is Stardew Valley, but others think it's so slow it's not even worth trying. I can't get one of my friends to give it a chance. Of course though, that's an indie game, and we're not here to talk about indie games. We only care about AAA games right now. The only thing that video games are supposed to be are fun. I think that's pretty much agreeable across the board. But it feels like fun is almost an afterthought for many games these days. It used to be a primary thing that games focused on, but that's not even what the game trailers are about recently. It's more about graphics, realism, immersion, the size of the game. I mean, as much as I can find aspects of this really cool, for example, I think Arthur Morgan individually picking up each item one at a time is actually quite impressive. Yes, it's extremely immersive. Yes, it's extremely cool that each gun in my holster actually needs cleaning and wiping. Yes, it all makes for a game that makes you not only look like the cowboy, but feel like the cowboy. But it's not my favourite game. I wouldn't even place it in my top 10. I've never finished it. That's not the only game I own which prioritizes other things over being fun. Cyberpunk 2077, only 6 hours on record. This was after they patched the game 100 times, in case you're curious. God of War Ragnarok, I've tried to play 3 times, but just something feels like it's missing from it. Horizon Zero Dawn, never finished. They're not bad games, not at all. But why is it that I've played in full Life is Strange I think about 5 times now, and still adore it? Why have I invested far more time into Stardew Valley than what I want to admit? Why have games like Until Then, Hollow Knight, Cult of the Lamb, hell, even Undertale made me play them to the very end when they undeniably have less to do in them, and should in theory be worse? 2 of them were made by one person. The previously listed AAA games have teams dedicated to animating Arthur's beard. If you adore these games and swear that you would much rather spend the additional time walking to the shop, buying the carrot for your horse, walking back, feeding it, and then brushing it, then good for you. I'm glad that you can find enjoyment in it, but to me it just feels like they don't respect my time. I don't need any of this. When 8 Pixels from Stardew Valley expresses the same thing. Apart from games perhaps caring about the wrong thing, many argue that they just lack a bit of uniqueness. Think about it. When hardware wasn't as powerful, video game companies had to be unique to express their vision. The time and resources didn't go into animating Tony Hawk's leg hair, it was invested in gameplay. Even though I've never had the pleasure of playing it myself since the original one was made before I was even alive. I don't mean to make any of you feel old right now, so I do apologise. But I've heard some great things about Spyro. Now though, they all look the same. All are third-person or first-person shooters with expansive open-world designs, immersive game designs, expansive character customization designs, and so on. Feels like games are made more for the trailers than the players in the vast majority of cases. Obviously, there's always going to be diamonds in the rough. Elden Ring, Spider-Man, etc. But they are unfortunately getting few and far between, which is quite sad really. I want to have fun doing one of my favourite hobbies, I really do, but I can't manage to dedicate the time to something which doesn't feel fun to me, just so I can join in with the crowd who says that these are some of the best games ever created. I've had some of my favourite gaming memories thanks to AAA games, but these were the older ones. Most of the AAA games on my shelf end up collecting dust. I mean, why do I keep buying them? I honestly couldn't tell you. Games are very subjective after all, but I think there are definitely factors coming into play which make them undeniably worse. I mean, just search up modern gaming and some of the top results are how bad it's doing. Will they listen to us? No, obviously not. They're making more money than what they could ever imagine. Maybe we need to stop buying them? Maybe we need to storm the company with pitchforks and flames. I don't know what we can do in this situation, but I just want to acknowledge it, really. I don't know. I want to know your thoughts on it though. Let me know in the comments below. I'm just overthinking things here or not, because I feel like I'm going insane trying to enjoy playing games now. Apart from the indie games, those are still pretty great.